Marcus Chen stood in the cold storage room, his breath making small clouds in the air. Around him, rows of metal shelves held weapons from old Earth. Guns, knives, and explosives sat behind glass cases like museum pieces. The Valorians called this place the Archive of Primitive Tools. Marcus called it his prison. He picked up a simple rifle from the shelf. It was old, maybe 70 years old from before the Valorians came. The metal was still good. The mechanism still worked. But to the Valorians it was a toy. They had energy weapons that could cut through steel. They had ships that could burn cities from space. They had one without even trying hard. That was 50 years ago. Marcus was born 20 years after Earth surrendered. He had never known freedom. None of his generation had. The door opened with a soft hiss. Marcus turned to see Archon Velmoth enter the room. The Valorian was tall, almost 7 feet, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. His eyes were large and dark, and when he looked at you, you felt like he could see your thoughts. Maybe he could. The Valorians had powers that humans didn't understand. Marcus, Velmoth said. His voice was soft, almost kind. I need you to catalog the new items from Sector 7. Some human settlement tried to hide weapons. Foolish, but we must document everything. Yes, Archon, Marcus said. He kept his voice flat, empty. It was safer that way. Velmoth left and Marcus was alone again. He pushed the cart toward the back room where new items waited. But his mind was elsewhere. Last night he had received a message. It came through an old phone, the kind that didn't connect to the Valorian networks. The message was simple: Thursday midnight, Warehouse 12. Marcus knew what it meant. The Resistance. They had contacted him before 2 years ago, but he had been too scared. He had a good job, a safe apartment, enough food. Why risk it? But something had changed in him. Maybe it was the way Valorians looked at humans, like they were children who needed guidance. Maybe it was the way they smiled when they talked about improving humanity. The back room was darker than the main archive. Marcus turned on the light and saw boxes stacked against the wall. He opened the first one. Inside were more guns, simple ones that humans had made. He picked one up, felt its weight. Solid. Real. Then he saw the computer tablet in the corner of the box. It wasn't supposed to be there. Archive items came clean. No electronics that might have data. Marcus looked around. He was alone. He picked up the tablet and turned it on. The screen glowed. Files appeared. Lots of them. Marcus's hand started shaking. These were Valorian files. Military files. He scrolled through them, his heart beating faster. One file caught his eye. Project Renewal, Timeline and Protocols. He opened it. The words on the screen made him feel sick. The Valorians had a plan. In 2 generations, they would begin genetic optimization of all humans. They would change human DNA, make humans more like Valorians, better workers, more obedient, less aggressive. The document used kind words, but Marcus understood. They wanted to erase what made humans human. There was a schedule. Medical camps would open in 5 years. All humans would be required to attend. They called it health improvement. The document even had numbers. Percentages of genetic traits to remove. Memories to suppress. Marcus closed the tablet. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. He looked at the guns on the shelves around him. Primitive tools, the Valorians called them. But humans had made them. Humans had fought with them. Humans had protected their families with them. He took the tablet and hid it under his jacket. This was stupid, dangerous. They would kill him if they found out. But he couldn't unsee what he had seen. He couldn't pretend anymore. That night, Marcus didn't go home. He walked through the streets of New Beijing, past the tall Valorian towers that rose above the old human buildings. Humans moved through the streets like ghosts, quiet and careful. Valorian patrols walked in pairs, their armor gleaming under the streetlights. Warehouse 12 was in the old industrial district. Most of the buildings were empty now. Humans didn't make things anymore. The Valorians brought everything from other worlds. Marcus checked his watch. 11:50. He waited in the shadows across the street. At midnight, a door opened. A woman stood in the doorway. She was Asian, about his age, with short black hair. She looked both ways, then signaled to him. Marcus crossed the street quickly and went inside. The warehouse was dark except for a few lights in the center. 6 people sat around a table. They all turned to look at him. Marcus Chen, the woman said. I'm Yuki Tanaka. We've been watching you for a while. We think you can help us. I can't help anyone, Marcus said. I'm just a cataloger. You work in the Valorian military archive, a man said. He was older, with gray hair and scars on his face. You see their weapons? Their technology. You know what they have. That's why they'll never suspect you, Yuki added. She sat down and pointed to an empty chair. Please sit, Marcus sat. His hand touched the tablet under his jacket. I found something today, he said. Something bad. He took out the tablet and placed it on the table. The others leaned forward. Yuki took it and scrolled through the files. Her face went pale. Project Renewal, she read aloud. They're going to change us. Change our DNA. In 5 years, Marcus said. They'll start with children. Make them more obedient. Less human. The room was silent. Then the older man spoke. My name is William Okonkwo. I was a general before the Valorians came. I'm still a general officially, but now I command human auxiliary forces for them. He looked at each person in the room. We've been preparing for this moment. We knew the Valorians wouldn't let us stay human forever. We just didn't know when they would act. We can't fight them, a young man said. They have ships, armies, powers we don't understand. We don't fight them head on, Okonkwo said. We're smarter than that. We've been hiding weapons, supplies, equipment, small pieces for 50 years. The Valorians think we're broken. They think we're tame. That's our advantage, Yuki looked at Marcus. Can you copy more files? We need to know everything about their military. Their weaknesses. I can try, Marcus said. But if they catch me, they'll kill you, Okonkwo finished. They'll kill all of us. But if we do nothing, they'll take everything we are. Our children will forget they were ever human. Marcus thought about the guns in the archive. Primitive tools. But humans had made them. Humans had survived ice ages and plagues and wars. Humans had climbed out of caves and reached for the stars. The Valorians thought they had won. They thought humans were servants now. Maybe it was time to show them they were wrong. I'll do it, Marcus said. I'll get you whatever I can, Yuki smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. Welcome to the Resistance. Outside, the city slept under Valorian rule. But in that warehouse, something had changed. A spark had been lit, and sparks, given time and fuel, could become fires that burned empires to ash. 6 months passed like shadows. Marcus moved through his days at the archive like always, cataloging weapons and equipment that the Valorians would never use. But his nights were different now. His nights belonged to the Resistance. He had copied 17 files from Valorian systems. Each one was dangerous. Each one could get him killed. But each one gave the Resistance something precious. Information. Tonight, Marcus sat in a different warehouse with Yuki and 12 others. General Okonkwo stood at the front of the room, pointing at a map projected on the wall. We have cells in 30 cities now, Okonkwo said. Small groups well hidden. The Valorians don't even know we exist. He touched the map and it changed to show other planets. We've made contact with resistance groups on Mars, Europa Station, and New Tokyo Colony. We're not alone anymore. But we're still weak, a woman said. Her name was Sarah, and she had lost her family in the Valorian invasion. They have thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. What do we have? A few thousand people with old guns? Okonkwo smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. We have something better. We have what they forgot about. He changed the map again. This time it showed locations across Earth. Red dots appeared in mountains, oceans, and deserts. For 50 years, soldiers who never surrendered have been hiding things. Weapons, ammunition, ships, technology. The Valorians thought they took everything, but they were wrong. Marcus stared at the map. There were hundreds of red dots. How did you hide all this? We were patient, Okonkwo said. We used the old ways. Paper maps, not computers. Face-to-face meetings, not messages. We moved slowly, and the Valorians got comfortable. They stopped watching us as carefully. They thought we were broken. Yuki stood up. We've learned something from Marcus's files. The Valorians haven't fought a real war in over 200 years. They're strong, yes, but they're not ready for what we can do. What can we do? Another man asked. They have psionic powers. They can read minds. Not all minds, Yuki said, and not when they're not paying attention. We've tested it. When Valorians use their powers, they focus on specific people. They can't watch everyone all the time, and there are billions of humans. Even with their powers, they can't control all of us. Okonkwo pulled up another file. This is from Marcus's last upload. It shows Valorian military doctrine, how they fight. They use energy weapons mostly. Clean, precise. They target leadership and important structures. They avoid civilian casualties because they see themselves as civilized. That's a weakness? Sarah asked. Everything is a weakness if you know how to use it, Okonkwo said. They fight clean. We'll fight dirty. They target leaders. We'll have no leaders to target, just cells that act independently. They avoid civilians. We'll hide among civilians. They think war should be elegant. We'll show them that real war is ugly. Marcus felt uncomfortable. You're talking about guerrilla warfare, urban fighting. People will die. Our people. People are already dying, Okonkwo said quietly, slowly, by losing who they are. Project Renewal will kill us just as surely as bombs, but it will be slower, more painful. At least if we fight, we have a chance. The room was quiet. Everyone knew he was right, but no one wanted to say it. Yuki broke the silence. There's more. Marcus found something else. Show them. Marcus stood up and pulled up a new file on the projector. The Valorians are bringing in their Legion fleets, 50,000 soldiers across 10 ships. They'll arrive in 4 months. The official reason is security enhancement, but I read the real orders. They're coming because the Valorian High Council is worried about unrest. Unrest? Someone asked. What unrest? We've been quiet. Not us, Marcus said. Other worlds. 3 planets in the outer sectors have had protests. Nothing violent, just people asking for more freedom. The Valorians are scared it might spread. They want to make sure Earth stays controlled. Okonkwo's face was hard. Once those legions arrive, they'll lock down everything. More patrols, more surveillance, more control. We'll lose our chance. Chance for what? Sarah asked. To fight back, Okonkwo said. If we're going to do this, we have to do it before the legions arrive. We have to hit them now, while they're comfortable, while they think we're harmless. The room exploded with voices. Some people agreed. Others thought it was too soon, too dangerous. Marcus sat down and watched them argue. He thought about the guns in the archive, the simple, primitive weapons that humans had made. The Valorians had better weapons, but they had forgotten something important. Humans were good at war. Very good. It was something humans didn't like to admit, but it was true. Humans had fought each other for thousands of years. They had developed tactics and strategies that worked. The Valorians had conquered worlds, but they had done it with superior technology, not superior fighting. They had never faced an enemy that refused to give up. Yuki sat down next to Marcus. What do you think? I think we're going to do something very stupid, Marcus said. And I think we don't have a choice. No, Yuki agreed. We don't. The meeting went late into the night. They argued, planned, and worried. Finally, Okonkwo called for a vote. It wasn't perfect democracy, but it was something. Each cell leader would vote for their group. One by one, they voted. Yes or no. Fight or hide. When it was done, the count was clear. 15 votes for action. 3 votes against. Then it's decided, Okonkwo said. We start preparing. We have 4 months before the legions arrive. We'll hit them first. Coordinated strikes across multiple worlds. We'll target their communication networks, their supplies, their command posts. We'll show them that humans are not servants. After the meeting ended, Marcus walked home through the dark streets. His mind was racing. In 4 months, everything would change. People would die. Maybe he would die. But at least they would die free. He thought about something his grandfather had told him once. His grandfather had been alive when the Valorians came. He had seen the invasion. They came with smiles and promises, his grandfather had said. They said they would help us, protect us, guide us. But chains are still chains, even if they're made of silk. Marcus reached his apartment building. A Valorian patrol passed by, their armor glowing softly in the dark. They didn't even look at him. He was just another human, just another servant, but not for much longer. Over the next months, Marcus worked harder than ever. He copied every file he could access. Valorian fleet movements, weapon specifications, security codes. He smuggled them out piece by piece, hidden in old equipment that he said needed cleaning. The resistance grew. Weapons moved from hiding places to safe houses. People trained in secret, learning to fight again. Engineers studied Valorian technology, looking for weaknesses. Hackers probed their networks, finding backdoors and vulnerabilities. And then, 3 weeks before the legions were supposed to arrive, something happened. A resistance cell in Moscow was discovered. Marcus heard about it at work. Velmoth came into the archive, his face hard and angry. "There has been a terrorist incident," Velmoth said. "Humans plotting violence. We are increasing security measures immediately." Marcus kept his face calm. "Was anyone hurt?" "The terrorists were neutralized," Velmoth said. "That was Valorian talk for killed. But we found evidence of a larger network. The High Council is concerned." That night, Marcus learned the truth. The Moscow cell had been betrayed by someone they trusted. 12 people were dead, but before they died, the Valorians had read their minds. They knew about the resistance now. Not everything, but enough. The next day, Valorian ships appeared in orbit. They began bombarding Moscow's industrial district, where the cell had been operating. Thousands of people lived there, people who had nothing to do with the resistance. Marcus watched the news in horror. Buildings collapsed, fires burned, bodies filled the streets. The message was clear. This is what happens when you resist. That night, the resistance leaders met in an emergency session. Some wanted to stop, to hide again, to wait. But Okonkwo stood firm. "They've shown us who they really are," he said. "They'll kill us whether we fight or not. The only question is whether we die as servants or as free people." The vote came again. This time it was unanimous. They would strike in 1 week, before the legions arrived, before the Valorians could lock down everything. "If they bring their legions," Okonkwo said, "we'll turn them to ashes." The attacks began at midnight across 12 worlds. Marcus crouched behind a concrete barrier on the rooftop, watching the Valorian communication tower 200 meters away. Below him, the city of New Beijing slept, unaware that everything was about to change. Yuki knelt beside him, checking her rifle for the 3rd time. 2 minutes, she whispered. Marcus nodded. His hands were shaking. This wasn't like copying files or sneaking through archives. This was real. In 2 minutes, they would start a war. His radio crackled softly. "All teams ready," Okonkwo's voice said. "Remember, hit hard, hit fast, then disappear. This is just the beginning." "Good luck." Marcus looked at his watch. 10 seconds, 5, 3, 2, 1. Across the city, explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. The communication tower in front of Marcus erupted in flames as charges planted earlier that day detonated. All around the planet, the same thing happened. Communication towers fell. Power stations went dark. Valorian supply depots exploded. "Go!" Yuki shouted. They ran across the rooftop to the fire escape. Behind them, alarms began to wail. The Valorians would respond fast, but for now, confusion was their friend. In orbit above Earth, things were happening too. Hidden defense satellites that humans had built in secret came online. They targeted Valorian ships with old-fashioned missiles and railguns. The Valorians had better shields and weapons, but they hadn't expected an attack. 3 orbital platforms were destroyed in the first 5 minutes. Marcus and Yuki reached the street and split up. That was the plan. Small teams that could vanish into the city. No large groups that could be targeted easily. Marcus ran through alleys he had memorized over months. Behind him, he heard Valorian patrol ships flying low, their searchlights cutting through the darkness. He ducked into a subway entrance and disappeared underground. The subway trains had stopped running when the power went out. Marcus moved through the tunnels, his flashlight guiding the way. He wasn't alone. Other resistance members moved like ghosts through the dark, heading to safe houses and secondary positions. Above ground, the city erupted into chaos. Valorian forces mobilized quickly, but they didn't know where to go. The attacks had hit everywhere at once. Every communication hub, every garrison, every important facility. The Valorians were used to fighting from a distance with perfect information and clear targets. Now they had neither. In the Valorian Administrative Center, Archon Velmoth stared at the reports coming in. Attacks on Earth, on Mars, on Europa Station, on colony worlds he could barely pronounce. Everywhere at once. How is this possible? His superior demanded. We had no intelligence about this. No warnings. The humans hid their plans well, Velmoth said quietly. He thought about Marcus, the quiet young man who catalogued weapons. He wondered if Marcus was part of this. Probably. He had always seemed too observant, too careful. Deploy the ground forces, his superior ordered. Crush this uprising before it spreads. The High Council is watching. We cannot appear weak. Velmoth nodded and gave the orders. Across Earth, Valorian soldiers moved out in force. They had superior armor, superior weapons, superior everything. But as they entered the human cities, they found something they hadn't expected. The humans were gone. No large armies to fight. No bases to attack, just empty streets and shadows. And then from windows and rooftops, fire rained down. Simple bullets from simple guns. Explosives hidden in rubble. Traps in alleys. The humans weren't fighting fair. They weren't fighting like the Valorians thought civilized beings should fight. They were fighting to win. In New Johannesburg, South Africa, the pattern was the same. General Okonkwo watched from a command post hidden in an old shopping mall. Screens showed him what was happening across the city. Valorian patrols moving through streets, human fighters ambushing them, then vanishing. The Valorians would bring reinforcements and the humans would fade away, only to attack somewhere else. They're getting frustrated, his second-in-command said. They keep calling for air support, but we took out most of their close-range ships in the first strikes. Okonkwo nodded. Good, frustration leads to mistakes. Keep hitting them. Keep moving. Make them chase us. A young fighter ran up to him. General, the Valorians are moving armor into the Eastern District. Heavy walkers, 6 of them. Let them come, Okonkwo said. Section 3, are you in position? Yes, sir, a voice crackled over the radio. Then spring the trap. The Valorian walkers were massive machines, 20 feet tall, armed with energy cannons. They stomped through the streets of the Eastern District, scanning for targets. The pilots felt confident. Nothing humans had could hurt these machines. Then the street beneath the lead walker exploded. Not from above, but from below. Humans had spent weeks digging tunnels under that street, planting massive amounts of explosives. The walker fell into a crater 30 feet deep. The other walkers turned, trying to identify the threat. That's when the attack came from the buildings. Not energy weapons or fancy technology. Just simple rockets and anti-tank weapons, old designs from old wars. They hit the walkers from 6 directions at once. The Valorian shields could handle energy weapons easily, but kinetic weapons hitting with physical force were different. Harder to defend against. 3 more walkers went down. The remaining 2 retreated, firing blindly at buildings. But the humans were already gone, vanished into tunnels and basements. On the Valorian command ship orbiting Earth, the War Master watched the reports with growing anger. His name was Kethval, and he had served the Empire for 3 centuries. He had overseen the conquest of 20 worlds. Never had he seen anything like this. How many humans are fighting? He demanded. Unknown, War Master, an officer replied. They operate in small groups. Our best estimate is between 50 and 100,000 across all affected worlds. But they could have more in reserve. 50,000. Kethval couldn't believe it. We have millions of soldiers. Deploy the legions. I want this over in days, not weeks. The legions are still 3 weeks away, War Master. Kethval slammed his fist on the console. 3 weeks. The humans had planned this perfectly, striking just before reinforcements arrived. He had underestimated them. The whole Empire had underestimated them. Then we use what we have, he said. Increase orbital bombardment. If the humans want to hide in their cities, we'll remove the cities. Back on Earth, Marcus heard the news. The Valorians were going to start bombing populated areas. Millions would die. He found Yuki in their safe house cleaning weapons. They're going to kill everyone, Marcus said. Not just fighters, everyone. Yuki looked at him with tired eyes. Then we make them pay for every death. We make them regret ever coming to Earth. How? We're just guerrillas with basic weapons. They have ships that can burn continents. We have something they don't, Yuki said. She stood and walked to a covered object in the corner. She pulled off the tarp, revealing a complex device covered in wires and circuits. We've been working on this for years. It's a virus, but not for computers. It's for their psionic network, Marcus stared. The Valorians link their minds for communication and coordination. If we could disrupt that, they'd be blind, Yuki finished. Deaf, unable to coordinate. We've tested it on captured Valorian equipment. It works, but we need to upload it directly to their command ship, the one in orbit. That's impossible, Marcus said. How do we even get to orbit? Yuki smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. We have a ship, one they don't know about. It's old, barely functional, but it can make one trip. We just need someone brave enough or crazy enough to fly it. Marcus looked at the device, then at Yuki. He thought about his quiet life in the archive, his safe apartment, his careful existence. All of that was gone now. There was only forward. Only fighting. I'll go, he said. I know Valorian systems better than anyone. I can upload it. It's a one-way trip, Yuki warned. The ship won't have enough fuel to come back. I know, Marcus said. But someone has to do it. And I'd rather die doing something that matters than live as a servant. That night, as Valorian bombs fell on human cities, as soldiers fought and died in streets across 12 worlds, a small human ship launched from a hidden facility in the Arctic. It was old and slow, but it climbed toward the stars, toward the Valorian command ship that hung in orbit like a sword over humanity's neck. Inside, Marcus Chen sat in the pilot's seat, the virus device strapped to his chest. He thought about all the weapons in the archive. Primitive tools, the Valorians called them, but humans had made them. Humans had survived with them. And now, with nothing but courage and determination, humans would show the Empire what servants could do when they refused to serve. The command ship grew larger in his viewport. Alarms would be going off soon. They would try to shoot him down. But he was small and fast and desperate, and that made all the difference. Marcus's ship shook as Valorian defense systems locked onto him. Red lights flashed across his controls. Warning sounds screamed in his ears. He pushed the throttle forward, diving toward the massive command ship. Energy blasts cut through space around him, bright and deadly. One grazed his wing, sending the ship spinning. Marcus fought the controls, his hands steady despite his racing heart. He had trained for this moment in secret simulation programs. He had practiced until his hands moved without thinking. Unidentified vessel, you are in restricted space, a Valorian voice said over the radio. Power down immediately or be destroyed. Marcus didn't respond. He angled his ship toward the docking bay on the command ship's lower section. It was a small target, but it was his only chance. The bay shields would be weaker there, designed to let ships pass through. More energy blasts. His shields were failing. The ship's computer showed multiple system failures. But he was close now. So close. He hit the afterburners. The old engines screamed, pushing past their safety limits. The ship rocketed forward straight at the docking bay. At the last second, Marcus closed his eyes and braced for impact. The ship crashed through the energy barrier and slammed into the deck inside the bay. Metal screamed. Sparks flew. Marcus was thrown against his restraints hard enough to knock the air from his lungs. For a moment, everything went dark. Then alarms brought him back. His head hurt. His ribs hurt. Everything hurt. But he was alive, and he was inside the Valorian command ship. Marcus unstrapped himself and grabbed the virus device. The ship's cockpit was filling with smoke. He kicked open the door and stumbled out onto the deck. Valorian soldiers were already running toward him, weapons raised. He didn't have much time. Marcus ran deeper into the ship, following the maps he had memorized. The Valorians shouted behind him. Energy blasts hit the walls around him. He turned a corner and slammed a door shut, then fired his pistol at the control panel. The door locked. It wouldn't hold them long, but he didn't need long. Just enough time to reach the central computer core. Down corridors. Through empty rooms. The ship was huge, designed for thousands of crew. But most of them were at their stations fighting the human uprising. Marcus ran alone through the metal halls, his breath coming in gasps. Finally he reached it. A massive room filled with glowing crystals and pulsing lights. The Valorian computer core. It was beautiful and alien and terrifying. This was the brain of their fleet, the center of their psionic network. Marcus pulled out the virus device and connected it to an access port. His fingers flew over the controls. The device started uploading its payload. Progress bar, 10%, 20%. Behind him, the door exploded inward. Valorian soldiers poured into the room. "Stop!" one shouted in perfect English. "Move away from the console." Marcus turned slowly, hands raised. But he didn't move away. "It's already uploading," he said. "You can kill me, but you can't stop it now." The lead soldier raised his weapon. Then he paused. His large dark eyes went wide. He stumbled, hand going to his head. Around the room, other Valorians did the same. They were feeling it, the virus spreading through their psionic network, disrupting their connection to each other. The soldier fired, but his aim was off. The blast went wide, hitting the wall. Marcus dove behind a console as the room erupted in chaos. The Valorians were trying to fight, but their coordination was failing. They relied on their mental link to work together. Without it, they were just individuals, confused and afraid. The device beeped. "Upload complete." Marcus felt the ship shudder. Something was happening. He looked at the monitors. Across the Valorian fleet, ships were drifting off course. Communication channels were filled with confused voices. The virus was spreading faster than anyone had expected, jumping from ship to ship through their shared network. But Marcus wouldn't live to see the results. A Valorian soldier had recovered enough to aim properly. Marcus saw the weapon point at him. He closed his eyes, thinking about Yuki and Okonkwo and all the people fighting below. Then something hit the ship. Hard. The explosion threw everyone to the floor. Lights flickered. The soldier's blast went wild, hitting the ceiling. Through the monitors, Marcus saw something that made his heart leap. Ships. Human ships. Rising from Earth's surface and from hiding places throughout the solar system. Hundreds of them. They weren't fancy or new, but they were armed and they were angry. General Okonkwo's voice came over emergency channels. "All units, this is it. Everything we've saved. Everything we've hidden. Hit them now while they're blind." The trap was sprung. For 50 years, humans had been building ships in secret. In asteroid mines. In underwater facilities. In stations hidden on the dark side of moons. The Valorians had thought they were cataloging everything. They were wrong. From the asteroid belt, hidden military platforms activated. Massive railguns that had been built piece by piece over decades. They fired solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. No fancy energy. Just kinetic force. Physics that couldn't be blocked by psionic shields. The slugs hit Valorian ships like hammers. Armor crumpled. Hulls breached. The beautiful warships that had seemed invincible began to die. On Earth, General Okonkwo watched from his command post as the battle unfolded. His plan was working. The virus had disrupted Valorian coordination. Now human forces could fight on more equal terms. "Deploy the drone swarms," he ordered. From hidden facilities, thousands of small drones launched. They were cheap, simple machines. Each one barely had enough intelligence to find a target and explode. But there were so many of them. For every one the Valorians shot down, 10 more got through. The drones swarmed the Valorian ships like angry insects. They found weak points, engine ports, weapon emplacements, sensor arrays. They exploded in flashes of light, each one small but together devastating. War Master Kethval stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching his fleet die. He couldn't understand it. How had the humans hidden all this? How had they planned so perfectly? "War Master, we need to retreat," his second-in-command said. "We've lost 40% of the fleet. The psionic network is failing. We can't coordinate our defenses," Kethval wanted to argue. The Empire didn't retreat. The Empire didn't lose. But as he watched another 3 ships explode on his view screen, he realized the truth. The humans hadn't been broken. They had been waiting. "Send the retreat order," he said quietly. "All ships withdraw to the outer system. Regroup at..." An explosion cut him off. The command ship shuddered. Something had hit them. Not a small drone this time. Something bigger. General Okonkwo had launched his flagship, an old carrier that had been hidden under the ocean for decades. It wasn't meant to survive the battle. It was meant to do one thing. "All crew to escape pods," Okonkwo said calmly. His officers protested, but he shook his head. "This is a one-way trip. Get off the ship. That's an order." As his crew evacuated, Okonkwo set course for the Valorian command ship. He pushed the engines to maximum, using all the fuel in one massive burst of speed. The carrier accelerated toward its target like a missile. The Valorians saw him coming and fired everything they had. Energy beams cut into the carrier. Explosions ripped through its hull. But Okonkwo didn't stop. He kept going even as the ship fell apart around him. For Earth, he said quietly. For humanity. The carrier hit the Valorian command ship at full speed. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface, a brief new star in the night sky. Marcus felt the impact through the whole ship. He knew what had happened. Okonkwo had sacrificed himself. The general had given everything for this moment. Marcus pulled himself to his feet. Valorian soldiers were down, unconscious or dead from the crash. The ship was dying, its systems failing one by one. He needed to get to an escape pod. He ran through tilting corridors as explosions bloomed around him. He passed Valorians trying to abandon ship. None of them tried to stop him. They were all just trying to survive. Marcus found a pod and climbed inside. He sealed it and hit the launch button. The pod shot out into space, joining hundreds of others fleeing the dying ship. Through the small viewport, Marcus watched the command ship break apart. Pieces of it tumbled through space, burning as they fell toward Earth's atmosphere. And beyond it, the rest of the Valorian fleet was retreating, scattered and broken. Human ships didn't pursue. They couldn't, most were damaged. Some were completely destroyed. But they had done it. Against impossible odds, they had won. Marcus's pod began its descent toward Earth. He watched the burning debris of the Valorian fleet streak across the sky like falling stars. Like ashes, the Valorians had called human servants. They had thought humans were primitive, broken, easy to control. They had been wrong. As Marcus's pod fell through the atmosphere, he thought about all the people who had died for this moment. The Moscow cell, General Okonkwo, thousands of fighters across 12 worlds. They had paid the price for freedom with their lives. But because of them, humanity was free again. The pod's emergency systems guided it toward a landing zone. Marcus didn't know where. He didn't care. Wherever it would be on a free Earth, and that was enough. The pod hit ground hard, throwing Marcus against the restraints one more time. For a moment, he just sat there, breathing alive, free. Then he heard a sound. The pod door opening. Light flooded in. Hands reached for him, helping him out. 3 months after the Battle of Saul, Marcus stood in what used to be the Valorian Administrative Center. Now it was a hospital. The building's grand halls were filled with beds and medical equipment. Injured humans recovered here, alongside a few Valorian wounded who had been left behind. Marcus walked through the wards, checking on people. He wasn't a doctor, but there weren't enough doctors. There weren't enough of anything. The war had been won, but the cost was high. 15 million dead across all the worlds that had fought. Whole cities destroyed, infrastructure ruined, but they were free. Marcus Chen, a voice called. He turned to see a young woman with a tablet. She wore the armband of the new provisional government. The council is meeting in an hour. They want you there, Marcus nodded. He had tried to avoid politics. He was just a cataloger, or he had been. Now he was something else. A war hero, people called him. He hated that title. Heroes didn't crash ships into docking bays because they had no better plan. The council met in a building that had survived the fighting mostly intact. Yuki was already there, along with representatives from Mars, Europa, and a dozen colony worlds. The room was crowded with people who had been resistance leaders, military officers, and ordinary civilians, thrust into leadership roles. "Thank you for coming," the chairman said. His name was David Kim, and he had been a teacher before the war. Now he helped run a planet. "We have news from the Valorian Empire. They want to talk." The room exploded with voices, some angry, some surprised, some demanding they refuse. Kim raised his hands for quiet. "I know, but we need to hear what they have to say. We've been monitoring their communications. The Empire is in chaos. 12 more worlds have revolted since we won. The High Council is scared." A screen activated, showing a Valorian face. It was Archon Velmoth. He looked older now, tired. His shimmer was dull. "People of Earth," Velmoth said in English. "I speak with authority from the Valorian High Council. We wish to propose peace terms." Marcus leaned forward. He had worked with Velmoth for years. The Archon had always been one of the more reasonable ones, but he was still Valorian. Still part of the empire that had enslaved humanity. "The Council acknowledges that errors were made in our administration of human worlds," Velmoth continued. "We underestimated your capacity for self-determination. We propose the following: complete independence for all human worlds, return of all seized property and technology, and reparations to be paid over 50 years. The room was silent. These were good terms, better than anyone had expected. In return, Velmoth said, we ask for peace. No further attacks on Valorian worlds or shipping. No support for other rebellions within the Empire, and we ask that you share the virus you used against our psionic network so we can develop defenses. We believe other species may try to use similar methods. The screen went dark. The room erupted again. It's a trap, someone said. They want time to rebuild, then they'll attack again. Maybe, Yuki said. But they're also scared. We hurt them badly. They lost almost a third of their fleet at Sol, and now other worlds are rising up. They can't fight everyone at once. Marcus stood up. People quieted to hear him. He didn't want to speak, but he had to. I worked with Velmoth for years, Marcus said. He's not a bad person for a Valorian, but he's still part of an empire that enslaved us. That plan to erase who we are. We can't forget that, so we refuse? Kim asked. No, Marcus said. We accept their terms. But we don't trust them. We keep building ships. We keep training soldiers. We stay ready. And we help other species if they ask. Not by attacking the Valorians directly, but by sharing what we learned. How to fight? How to win, Yuki nodded. Marcus is right. This isn't over. The Valorian Empire still exists. They still rule hundreds of worlds. But we've shown that they can be beaten. That's worth more than any reparations. The vote came quickly. Accept the peace terms, but remain prepared for war. It passed almost unanimously. After the meeting, Marcus walked alone to the memorial being built at the edge of the city. It was a simple thing, a wall with names. So many names. People who had died for freedom. Fighters and civilians. Young and old. People like General Okonkwo who had given everything. I knew you'd be here, Yuki said, walking up beside him. Marcus didn't turn. I keep thinking about Moscow. Those 12 people who were killed. The thousands who died in the bombing afterward. If we hadn't started the uprising, they'd still be alive. If we hadn't started the uprising, we'd all be dead in a few years. Yuki said. Not physically dead maybe, but dead inside. The genetic modification would have taken everything that makes us human. You saw the files. I know, Marcus said. But knowing something is necessary doesn't make it easy. They stood in silence, looking at the names on the wall. Finally, Yuki spoke again. The council wants to know what you'll do now. They're setting up a military academy. They want you to teach there how to fight against superior forces, how to win when you shouldn't. Marcus almost laughed. I don't know how we won. We just got lucky. It wasn't luck, Yuki said. It was planning, patience, understanding our enemy better than they understood us. Those are things we can teach. Marcus thought about it. He had been a cataloger of old weapons. Now he would teach the next generation how to use those weapons, how to stay free. Okay, he said. I'll teach. Over the next months, things slowly returned to normal. Not the old normal. That was gone forever. But a new normal. Humans rebuilt their cities. Valorian technology was adapted for human use. Trade routes opened between human worlds. Democracy took root, messy and chaotic and beautiful. And across the galaxy, other species watched. On Theta Carist 4, a species called the Dren had been under Valorian rule for 60 years. They saw what humans had done. They began to organize. On Zel Prime, the insectoid Shalkar started hiding weapons and planning. On a dozen other worlds, species that had accepted Valorian rule because they thought they had no choice began to realize they did have a choice. They could fight. They could win. The Valorian Empire tried to crack down, but it was too late. The fire had spread. Within a year, 50 worlds were in open rebellion. The empire that had seemed eternal began to crack. Marcus heard the reports and felt conflicted. More wars meant more death, but it also meant more freedom. He wondered if the cycle would ever end, empires rising and falling, species fighting for freedom only to become oppressors themselves. But that was a worry for another day. 2 years after the Battle of Sol, Marcus stood at the same memorial wall. It was complete now, with all the names carved into black stone, 50,000 names from Earth alone, millions more across all the worlds that had fought. The memorial also had a message carved at the bottom. They called us servants and meant to break us. Instead, we showed them what servants can do when they refuse to serve. From the ashes of their legions, we built a free humanity. May we never forget the cost. May we never become what we fought against. Marcus reached out and touched General Okonkwo's name. The old soldier had been right. Freedom had a price, but it was worth paying. Yuki joined him at the wall, as she often did. "The Dren won their freedom yesterday," she said. "They used tactics we taught them. Hit-and-run attacks. Guerrilla warfare. The Valorians couldn't stop them." "How many died?" Marcus asked. "Thousands, but millions are free now." Marcus nodded. It was always a balance. Death and freedom on opposite sides of a scale. He didn't know if it would ever feel right. "There's something else," Yuki said. She handed him a tablet. "The other rebel species want to form an alliance. A federation of free worlds. They're asking if humans will lead it." Marcus read the proposal. Representatives from 20 species, all recently freed from the Valorian Empire. They wanted to work together, to protect each other, to make sure no empire could enslave them again. "What did the council say?" Marcus asked. "They're divided. Some think we should focus on rebuilding our own worlds. Others think we have a responsibility to help. They want to know what you think." "What I think doesn't matter. I'm just a teacher now," Yuki smiled. "You're never just anything, Marcus. You're the person who flew a suicide mission into a Valorian command ship. You're a symbol. People listen to you." Marcus looked at the memorial wall again. All those names, all those people who had believed that freedom was worth fighting for. Would they want humanity to help others find that same freedom? Or would they want humanity to stay safe, to protect what they had won? He thought about it for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "Tell the council I think we should join the Federation. Not as leaders, but as equals. We're not an empire. We're not conquerors. But we can share what we learned. We can stand with others who fight for freedom. That's what those people died for." He gestured to the wall. "Not just human freedom. The idea of freedom itself." Yuki nodded. "I'll tell them." She left, and Marcus was alone with the names again. He wondered what would happen next. More wars, probably. More death. But also more freedom. More species standing up and saying no to oppression. The Valorian Empire still existed, though smaller now and weaker. Maybe one day it would fall completely. Or maybe it would reform. Become something better. Marcus didn't know. What he did know was this. Humans had been called servants. They had been seen as primitive and weak. But they had turned the Valorian legions into ashes.